Imagine this. You're standing alone in a quiet room. No distractions. No background noise. No one to impress, argue with, or hide from. Just you and your thoughts. You look into a mirror, not the kind that reflects your face, but the kind that reflects your soul. And suddenly you see something terrifying. Not a monster, not a secret, but a mask. And then a voice, your voice, whispers from the inside. This is who I really am. But something feels off. Something inside you stirs with unease. That voice, that certainty, it doesn't sound entirely true. And yet you believe it because you've told yourself the same thing for years. Now ask yourself, what if that voice, that mask, that identity you've clung to, is a carefully woven lie? Not a malicious one. Not one told by others. But one told by you, to yourself, over and over again. What if the stories you tell yourself every day? I'm just not good with people. I'm too lazy to change. This is just who I am. If I had more time, I'd chase my dreams. Are not reflections of reality, but cages wrapped in the comfort of familiarity? What if the truth about who you are is buried under years of mental conditioning, invisible to you because it's so tightly bound with your sense of self? You see, the mind doesn't need to be manipulated by governments, cults, or algorithms. The most effective manipulator is you. You are the propaganda. You are the architect of your own illusion. And this illusion, this tapestry of half-truths and protective narratives, helps you survive. It protects you from shame, from pain, from the overwhelming task of confronting your own potential. But survival is not living, and comfort is not freedom. Here's the paradox. You crave authenticity, yet you rehearse inauthenticity every day. You long for truth, yet lie to yourself to sleep at night. You say you want change, but worship routine like it's a god. How do you reconcile this? How do you face the possibility that you might not know who you really are? Not because you haven't discovered it, but because you've actively buried it. Think about it. Why do you stay in jobs that drain your soul? Why do you maintain relationships that feel hollow? Why do you replay the same emotional patterns like a script you didn't write but keep performing anyway? Because somewhere along the line, it became easier to become the lie than to confront the truth. It's a subtle deception. Not the kind that screams, but the kind that whispers just loud enough to drown out your intuition. It sounds like logic, but it's fear. It looks like humility, but it's shame. Feels like security, but it's a trap. And it works because you've made it work. Your beliefs about yourself aren't born, they're built. Brick by brick, memory by memory, excuse by excuse. But here's the question that lingers like smoke in the air. If the person you think you are is a lie, then who are you without the lie? A blank slate? A stranger? A threat? Or maybe someone extraordinary? Someone terrifyingly free. But freedom requires a sacrifice, and the first thing that must die is the lie. So the question isn't whether you lie to yourself. You do. We all do. The real question is, which lies are you telling, and which ones have you mistaken for truth? The lie that you're not creative? That you're too broken to love? That you're stuck because of your past? That you're just not the kind of person who can change? What if these aren't flaws but strategies? What if these are self-written stories to justify staying in the warm bath of your limitations? And yet, beneath it all, there's a part of you that knows. That tiny, annoying voice that ruins your distractions. The part of you that pauses at midnight when you're scrolling endlessly. The part of you that feels the weight of time slipping and wonders if this is it. That voice? It's not lying. It's screaming through the static. Now the mirror is still in front of you. The mask still intact. The room still quiet. But the air feels heavier, doesn't it? Because now, you're not sure where the lie ends and you begin. And that's exactly where we need to go next. Because understanding the lie, its roots, its architecture, and its purpose, is the first step toward breaking it. So let's go deeper. Let's trace the origin of the self-deception. Let's unravel the hidden machinery that makes these lies so powerful. Are you ready to find out why you lie to yourself every day? You weren't born lying to yourself. As a child, you saw the world as it was, raw, chaotic, exhilarating. You asked uncomfortable questions. You cried when you felt sad. You screamed when you felt angry. You existed with a kind of brutal honesty most adults now fear. And then, slowly, the shaping began. You shouldn't feel that way. Be strong. Don't say that out loud. Stop being so sensitive. This is how things are. The instructions weren't always malicious. In fact, they were often spoken with love. But love, too, can be misinformed. And through repetition, your truth was replaced by adaptation. You didn't stop being yourself. You learned to be someone else. Psychologists call this process conditioning. But Carl Jung gave it a deeper name: the creation of the persona, the mask you wear to meet the expectations of society. It isn't fake, it's just incomplete. It's the part of you that earns approval, fits in, knows how to play the game. But while you were building the persona, something else was happening in the shadows. You were also burying parts of yourself: anger, desire, fear, chaos, brilliance, wildness. Not because they were wrong, but because they were inconvenient. These castaway parts, Jung said, form the shadow, the side of you disown but cannot escape. And here's the tragedy. You started lying not to deceive others, but to survive yourself. You told yourself you didn't care. You told yourself you weren't afraid. You told yourself you were okay with being overlooked, undervalued, unheard. Each lie felt small, harmless, necessary. But over time, they formed a psychological scaffolding so thick that even your own truth couldn't get through. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "We are unknown to ourselves, we knowers." He wasn't being poetic, he was being precise. You think you know who you are. But what if what you know is just what you've rehearsed? What if your memories are curated? Your identity, a narrative. Your story, one written to protect, not to reveal? You believe you're lazy. But maybe you were never taught how to harness passion. You believe you're introverted. But maybe the world shamed your expression into silence. You believe you're broken. But maybe you're just afraid to feel pain again. What you think of as truth is often trauma with good PR. Let's go deeper. Arthur Schopenhauer saw the human condition as a battle between the will to live, our raw, irrational drive, and the intellect, which tries to organize it into coherence. The lies we tell ourselves, he might argue, are the intellect's way of taming the chaos of desire, fear, and longing. But that taming comes at a cost. We lose contact with the primal pulse of what makes us alive. Jean-Paul Sartre believed we're condemned to be free. That sounds liberating until you realize it means there's no cosmic excuse for your inaction. No external savior. No grand design that justifies your choice to stay small. It's all you. Your beliefs, your definitions, your invented limitations. So when you say, "I can't," Sartre would challenge you. Is it that you can't, or that you won't? And then there's Gabor Mate, the modern voice of inner healing. He doesn't ask, "What's wrong with you?" He asks, "What happened to you?" Because every lie you tell yourself began as a truth you weren't allowed to speak. The lie, "I don't need anyone," might have been born the day no one came for you. The lie, "I'm fine," might have protected you from a world that punished vulnerability. The lie, "I'm not good enough," may have been the echo of someone else's shame planted in your soil. These lies are adaptive responses to emotional starvation. They're survival tools. But survival tools are not meant for thriving. And if you're reading this far, it's likely because you feel the hunger to thrive gnawing beneath your skin. So how do these lies persist even when you suspect them? Because the human psyche prefers a painful certainty over a liberating unknown. Your mind is built to protect the status quo, even if that status quo is destroying you. Cognitive dissonance kicks in when a truth threatens the self-image you've built. And so you choose the comforting lie, because the truth would demand change. You'd have to face the fact that your job is killing your soul. You'd have to admit that the relationship you defend is built on fear, not love. You'd have to confront the version of yourself you could have been, if only you hadn't believed the lie. And the lie is seductive. It doesn't shout. It whispers, "You're doing your best. This is just a phase. Other people have it worse. Who do you think you are to want more?" It offers just enough comfort to keep you from revolting. It's not evil. It's efficient. But here's the twist. You're not just the victim of these lies. You're also the perpetrator. You reinforce them, feed them, nurture them. What? Because they make you feel safe, even when they're keeping you small. You repeat the lie until it becomes your language. Your language becomes your identity. Your identity becomes your prison. This isn't just psychological. It's existential. It's spiritual. It's the death of potential by 1,000 rationalizations. So if you're feeling uneasy right now, good. That discomfort is your soul stirring beneath the weight of its falsehoods. Because the point of this isn't shame, it's awakening. But we're not done. Now that we've traced the root of the lie, into childhood, philosophy, trauma, and social survival, we need to understand what these lies do, how they quietly shape your life when you're not looking. The next step is to open your eyes to the damage, because once you see it clearly, you'll never lie to yourself the same way again. You wake up, scroll through your phone, maybe feel a dull ache behind your eyes. You brush it off, just tired. You move through your day, exchanging pleasantries, performing duties, fulfilling roles. You smile when you're supposed to, laugh when expected, say, "I'm fine" when asked how you are. But beneath it all, something's off. Not broken, just off. A quiet dissonance. A constant low-frequency hum of something's not right. This is the consequence of a life built on self-deception. The lies you tell yourself aren't just internal narratives. They shape your entire external experience. They decide your relationships, your ambitions, your reactions, even your silences. And the worst part? They operate silently, like malware in the background of your psyche, draining your battery while you wonder why you're always so tired. Let's take a deeper look at the subtle, unseen ways these lies take root and rot the foundation of your existence. 1. Your choices aren't truly yours. When you tell yourself, "I'm not capable of that," you limit what you even attempt. You pick jobs that feel safe, partners that don't challenge you, paths that keep you within the boundaries of your fabricated identity. Think about it. How many decisions in your life were made to avoid fear, judgment, or rejection, rather than out of true desire? You think you're exercising free will. But how free is your will when it's based on distorted beliefs? This is the illusion of autonomy. You're moving, yes, but within a cage of your own making. A cage that looks like comfort but smells like regret. 2. Your emotions become misdirected. When you lie to yourself about what you feel, you lose the ability to use your emotions as tools for growth. You don't just suppress anger, you misplace it. The rage you swallow from being disrespected at work, it erupts on your partner for leaving the dishes in the sink. The sadness you never processed from childhood, it shows up as numbness when you're supposed to feel joy. Emotions don't disappear when ignored. They shapeshift. They wait. And when they return, they don't knock. They break down the door. 3. You perform instead of connect. When your entire identity is shaped around being likable, normal, good, you end up performing rather than connecting. You wear your persona so tightly, even your closest relationships become filtered through performance. You wonder why intimacy feels hollow, why people never really see you, why even in a room full of friends, you sometimes feel utterly alone. It's because you're not being with them. You're being a version of yourself you think they want. And no one can truly love a mask. For the lie becomes your default reality. Neuroscience tells us that the brain is a pattern recognition machine. The more a thought is repeated, the stronger the neural pathway becomes. It's called Hebb's law. Neurons that fire together wire together. So what happens when you've been telling yourself the same lie for years? I'm not good enough. I don't deserve better. This is just who I am. Those aren't passing thoughts anymore. They're neural architecture. They've become the blueprint for your personality, your behavior, your life. You're not living despite the lie. You're living through it. 5. You become addicted to the familiar. There's a cruel irony in human psychology. We're more comfortable with familiar pain than unfamiliar freedom. This is why people stay in toxic relationships, why they return to self-sabotaging habits, why they fight for limitations they hate, just because they're familiar. You don't just tell yourself lies, you cling to them, because breaking free would mean facing the unknown, and the unknown to the conditioned mind is more terrifying than misery. Aldous Huxley once wrote, "Facts do not cease to exist because they are ignored." But in your case, it's even more tragic. The truth doesn't just get ignored, it gets replaced. 6. Your future gets mortgaged. Every lie is a small debt borrowed against the future. When you say, "I'll start tomorrow," when you pretend it's not that bad, when you convince yourself, "I'm too late anyway," you're not just avoiding the present. You're selling your future for the price of momentary comfort. And eventually the bill comes due. In lost time, in buried potential, in the quiet desperation that arrives at 3 a.m. when your soul taps you on the shoulder and whispers, "This isn't it." 7. You forget what truth even feels like. The longer you wear the mask, the more it feels like your skin. At some point, the line between what you really believe and what you pretend to believe blurs. You don't even know what you want anymore, just what you should want. And when the truth finally does surface, raw, terrifying, liberating, you reject it. Not because it's wrong, but because it feels unfamiliar. And unfamiliar truth always loses to familiar lies. So where does this leave you? You're not evil for lying to yourself. You're human. You adapted to survive. You did what you had to do. But adaptation is not liberation. Now that you've seen the hidden cost, now that you've felt it, there's no going back. The mask is cracked. The illusion is flickering. And here's where things get dangerous in the best possible way. Because now you're at the edge of a choice. Continue living the lie, or burn it to the ground and face what's real. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. The next section isn't for the faint of heart. It's for the rebels. The ones ready to question everything, even themselves. Because now it's time to confront the unthinkable. What happens when you finally stop lying and start living? Rebellion doesn't always look like fire in the streets or raised fists in the air. Sometimes rebellion is quieter, but far more dangerous. It begins when you look in the mirror and, for the first time, refuse to lie. Imagine this. You sit in silence. No distractions. No phone. No noise. And you whisper the question that makes most people squirm. What if everything I've built my life around is false? This is where the rebellion starts. Not with action, but with awareness. Not by changing the world, but by confronting the parts of yourself you've carefully kept hidden. This isn't a self-help cliche. This is war. And your battlefield is your mind. Step 1. Destroy the myth of the stable self. We've all been taught to believe in a solid, unchanging identity. I'm this kind of person. I could never do that. This is just who I am. But this idea of a fixed self is a prison. Jean-Paul Sartre argued that the human being is condemned to be free. That means you're not born with a script. You write it as you go. The problem? Most people cling to their labels so tightly, they suffocate in their own skin. The rebellion starts when you realize you are not a personality, you are a possibility. You don't find yourself, you create yourself. So rip off the labels. Stop protecting your patterns. Be willing to become someone new, even if it terrifies you. Step 2. Name the shadow. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The lies you tell yourself are often protections, defense mechanisms to avoid shame, fear, inadequacy. And behind every lie is a part of you that you've disowned. That's your shadow. You need to meet it. Sit down and write the truths you've never said aloud. I sabotage relationships because I don't believe I deserve love. I chase success to hide how empty I feel. I act like I don't care because I'm afraid no one will accept the real me. This is brutal. It will make your stomach turn. But it is also liberation. Because the moment you name the lie, it loses its power. Step 3. Confront the comfort addictions. Most people don't just lie to themselves, they numb themselves. You binge watch, doom scroll, overeat, obsess over other people's lives. Why? Because facing yourself is the most painful thing you'll ever do. Addiction isn't always to substances. It's to comfort, to escape, to not feeling. Gabor Mate teaches us that addiction isn't about pleasure. It's about pain relief. So here's your rebellion. Feel the pain. Let the boredom, sadness, rage, and longing rise. Sit with them. Don't run. Because underneath those feelings is the truth. And the truth will not kill you, it will wake you. Step 4. Break the agreement with fear. Fear is the silent architect of your false life. Every time you didn't speak your truth, every time you stayed where you didn't belong, every time you said, I'm fine, when you were crumbling inside, all of it fear. And here's the secret. Fear is not the enemy. Your obedience to fear is. Friedrich Nietzsche said, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. Your rebellion is to find your why, a purpose, a path, a truth, so powerful that fear becomes irrelevant. Let fear stay, but move anyway. That's real courage. Step 5. Build a life based on reality, not performance. You don't need to prove yourself. You need to know yourself. Stop asking, how do I appear? Will they like me? Am I doing this right? Start asking, does this feel true? Am I aligned with my values? Would I do this even if no one clapped? This is not a performance anymore. This is your life. Ditch the scripts, burn the costume. Speak, act, and choose in a way that makes your soul nod in recognition. Because that nod, that's the sound of alignment. That's what truth feels like. Step 6. Become radically responsible. You are not responsible for your childhood. You are not responsible for the pain that shaped you. But you are 100% responsible for what you do next. There is no savior coming. No one will give you permission. No external validation will ever feel like enough. Radical responsibility means this. You take ownership of your healing, your choices, and your future, even if none of this mess was your fault. And in doing so, you become unstoppable. Step 7. Make truth your religion. Every day recommit to reality. When you catch yourself exaggerating, performing, minimizing, escaping, pause. Ask, what's really true here? Make truth more important than comfort, more sacred than approval, more urgent than conformity. It will cost you relationships, opportunities, illusions. But what you get in return is priceless. Freedom. This is the rebellion. Not to become perfect, but to become real. You will lose people. You will lose identities. You will lose old dreams, but what remains will be you, raw, honest, awake. And when you look back at the life you used to live, the masks, the performances, the self-betrayals, you'll wonder how you ever called that living. Because now you're not surviving. You're choosing. You're not being pushed by fear. You're being pulled by truth. And the final realization, the one that changes everything, is still ahead. You're almost there. The lies have been exposed. The rebellion has begun. Now it's time to face the ultimate truth, the insight that will shatter everything you thought you knew about yourself and finally set you free. What if I told you the greatest lie you tell yourself is that you're telling yourself the truth? Imagine you've stripped away the masks. You've confronted your shadow. You've stood toe-to-toe with fear. You've burned the false identity you clung to like a safety blanket. And still, there's something missing. A question that lingers like a whisper in a cathedral after the final bell tolls. If I am not my thoughts, not my lies, not even my past, then who the hell am I? This is where most people stop. Right at the edge. Just before the fall. Because the ultimate truth is not comforting. It doesn't pat you on the back or hand you a certificate of enlightenment. The ultimate truth is empty. And in that emptiness, there is everything. The self you think you are doesn't exist. Sit with that. The you that you're trying to fix, improve, validate, prove, or save, that version is a construct, a story, a ghost built from memory, trauma, and desire. Arthur Schopenhauer said, "A man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills." Even your deepest wants, your ambition, your longing, your sense of right and wrong, are not truly yours. They were shaped by forces you never chose. Your culture, your parents, your pain. You are not the author of your life. You are the reader, flipping pages, confusing the ink for identity. But here's the final twist. The moment you stop trying to find yourself, you find freedom. The self is not a thing, it's a process. You are not a noun, you are a verb. You are not John or Priya or Michael or Arif. You are John Ng, Priya Ng, Michael Ng. You are an unfolding, a moment, a current in the ocean of being. Carl Jung didn't tell you to become perfect. He told you to become whole, to integrate all parts of you, even the ones society told you were unworthy. This is the final truth. You are not meant to be someone. You are meant to become. Every day, every moment, every breath is an act of recreation. So stop trying to get it all figured out. Stop trying to arrive. There is no arrival. The lie is that you're headed somewhere. The truth? You're already here. You always were. The paradox of becoming real. Let this sink in. The more you strip away what you thought was you, the closer you come to what you actually are. You thought you were your career. Then it collapsed. You thought you were your relationship. Then it ended. You thought you were your beliefs. Then they shattered. And in that moment, when you had nothing left to cling to, something strange happened. You were still there, breathing, aware, alive. This is the center that can't be touched. The part of you that watches but does not judge. That feels pain but is not destroyed by it. That can lose everything and still remain whole. Eckhart Tolle called it presence. The Buddhists call it no self. Jung called it individuation. Call it what you will, but it is you. The real you. Not the voice in your head, but the one who hears it. Life isn't about finding the truth, it's about living without lies. You don't need a final answer. You need honest questions. You need to walk through your life with your eyes open and your heart exposed, even when it hurts. You need to stop saying, I'll be happy when, I'll start living once, I'll feel worthy if, because that when, that once, that if is the lie. The real you is not on the other side of achievement. The real you is the one watching you chase it. When you realize this, the game changes. You no longer perform to be loved. You love because love is who you are. You no longer strive to be valuable. You create value because you're free. You no longer try to be good enough. You simply are, and that is enough. You are not broken. You are becoming. Let's rewrite the story. You are not a problem to solve. You are not a glitch in the system. You are not a failure just because you've failed. You are a soul in progress. Every breakdown was an invitation. Every mistake a teacher. Every lie you told yourself, an arrow pointing to something truer underneath. You want to know the truth? You never needed to be fixed. You only needed to be faced. The mirror has one final reflection. Imagine standing in front of the mirror again. But this time, instead of reciting the same tired lies, you look yourself in the eyes and say, I don't know who I am, but I'm willing to find out. I will no longer betray myself for comfort. I will walk into the unknown, not to escape but to awaken. I will stop chasing perfection and start embracing truth. And the mirror? For the first time, it smiles back. Not because the person in the reflection is flawless, but because they are honest. And honesty is what makes a soul radiant. The journey doesn't end here. You've crossed the threshold now. The lies? Exposed. The pain? Integrated. The truth? Revealed. And yet, the journey isn't over. Because truth is not a destination, it's a discipline. A way of walking through the world. You'll still fall. You'll still lie. You'll still forget. But now you'll remember faster. Now you'll return to yourself quicker. Now you'll forgive deeper. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Final words. You've been asleep, dreaming you were someone else. Now you're awake. Don't waste your awakening by trying to go back to sleep. Stay with the discomfort. Stay with the beauty. Stay with the truth. And when the world tempts you to wear the mask again, to lie just one more time, whisper this. I've already met the truth. And once you've met it, you can never unsee it.